you are due back £131. I was like, sorry, excuse me, HMRC want to give me my money back? Okay, so as the title of today's video suggests, we are going to be talking about the topic that I find is not really spoken about much at least in the property investing sort of circles and communities that I'm part of. I think it might be a British thing, like British people, we don't like to talk about money, don't like to say how much we earn or whatever. And so when it came to thinking about submitting my tax return, I was kind of like a little bit in the dark, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, let's dial it back. Okay, so for those who might not know, here in the UK and in most countries, I think, if you're earning an additional income from an asset, be it property, stock, shares, whatever, you are legally required to declare that additional income. And unfortunately, the government comes and takes the money away from you. Oh man, let's not get into that. But yeah, unfortunately, it's almost like they don't want us to win, but hey ho. That is the legal requirement, and therefore you must submit a tax return or a self-assessment, if you are self-employed or just earning any kind of additional income stream. So when I bought my property back in June 2017, geez, that's been a while. Oh my gosh, it's almost 2 years. When I bought my property back in June 2017, I knew that at some point in the near to distant future, I would need to submit a tax return. So I was in the market for a property tax specialist, essentially, because I knew that, I know you can do self-assessments online, you can, submit yourself, but I did not have the time to read up and teach myself how to do that. And also I didn't have the expertise, because someone who is a specialist and has been doing it for years will know what's tax deductible and what's not tax deductible. And I was just like, the word deductible, I was just like, nah, too much. I tried to read up on it and I was like, ain't got the time for this. And so I was actively looking for a property accountant, or a tax accountant, sorry. And so I actually got a reference from a friend of mine at church who's also a fellow landlord, and he said, speak to my guy, he's cool, he should be able to help you out. So I got on the blower. Such a classic British thing to say. Got on the phone and spoke to this accountant, and he said, whoa, slow your roll, you're a bit early, because I'd only just let the property out in September 2017, and he said, you're not going to have to submit your first tax return until January 2019, because they look at, when you submit your tax return, you're looking at the previous years. Yeah, so you're looking at the year before, the previous financial year, you're looking at what additional income you received from that. So I asked him there and then, I said, okay, well, what are you going to need from me? And he said, okay, keep a detailed account of your income and your expenditure with regards to your property. I know that there are various apps out there in the market. I think I see adverts for QuickBooks all the time on the tube. There are apps that can help you keep track of your income and expenditure and almost do the bookkeeping for you. But at the time I was just like, long for apps. I like a good Excel spreadsheet. I don't know, maybe it's the mathematician in me, I don't know, but I was like, I'm gonna keep an Excel spreadsheet. On that Excel spreadsheet, I kept track of any sort of money that was coming in, rental income. I kept track of money that I spent on repairs, refurbishment, money that I spent to pay for plumbers, gas safety checks. I also kept track of my mortgage interest payments, because at the moment mortgage interest payments are still tax deductible, but they are currently being phased out. So I kept track of that as well. Yeah, and so just kept that spreadsheet going. And then it came to sort of December last year, December 2018, and I knew that January 31st was coming up, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to contact my accountant. So I messaged him again. I said, can you just reconfirm what you're gonna need from me? So he said, yeah, give me that spreadsheet of yours, but also I'm going to need your P60 from work, because I'm in full-time employment. So he's going to need to know how much I'm earning from my full-time employment, because then he can add on what additional income I'm getting from property, and then depending on what tax band I then fall in, that will dictate how much tax I pay. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like the whole year that I was earning money from the property, I was literally not spending any of it. I was saving any money that I didn't need to spend, like, or any money that came in, it went directly into my sort of account, which I use for my properties. And I made sure that I did not touch that money, like, unless I needed to do repairs or something property related, because I was so shook. I was so scared that come January 2019 that HMRC were going to be like, you owe us £10,000, or like, I don't know, just something in my head. Because I've never done it before, so I didn't know what to expect. I was thinking, oh God, I'm gonna have to pay like a hefty lump sum like back to the HMRC because I was earning, you know, too much additional income from property, blah blah blah. Like, I didn't really understand it, so I was a bit scared. But you're pleased to know I submitted. It was so funny. I emailed him and he called me straight away and was like, "Hi Faye, just to let you know I got your information. Just please can you submit a bit earlier next time? You know, you're only leaving me 2 weeks in which to do this." And I imagine he must have other clients who are doing the exact same thing. So I felt really bad. But goodness, he turned it around in like 2 days. He literally got back to me, called me back in 2 days and said, "Faith, I've done that for you. I've submitted your return. You are due back £131. I was like, sorry? Excuse me? HMRC want to give me my money back as opposed to take it? I was about to ask questions. I was like, oh, okay, sure. And he's like, would you like that in a check in the post, or would you like it returned to your account? And if so, let me know what account details you'd like it paid into. And I was like, yep, please pay into my Metro Bank account. You know, these are the account details. I was like, woohoo! It was a small win. I was like, you know what? And I was going on holiday as well, so I was like, oh yes, a bit of extra spending money. So yeah, it was such. The thing is, like, I was so anxious about it. I didn't realise how much anxiety I was building up about submitting this return until it was submitted, and then, you know, I got the good news that I was getting money back. That, like, it was almost like a weight had lifted off my shoulder, and I was thinking, do you know what? There wasn't actually much to it, you know, and I'm quite grateful that I chose to do it through an accountant. Yes, he cost me in the region of £300, which I've heard is relatively cheap for accountants. I'm not sure because I didn't really, you know, research the market or didn't get that many quotes. I kind of just went off a reference because I trusted my friend at church, and, you know, I trusted him well because this accountant did, you know, he did the damn thing. Like, I got money back. So yeah, like, after it was submitted, it was like a weight had lifted off my shoulder, and I realised that actually this time next year, when it comes to resubmitting and doing it all over again, I now know exactly what he needs to get from me, and I know that I can submit it, you know, give him the information much earlier now because I'm going to be more prepared. So I think, like buying your first property, just going through the motions the first time is always tough because you don't know what you don't know, and you're kind of like finding your way through it. But once it's done, you're like, oh, I can do this again, you know, rinse and repeat. Lessons that I learned from submitting this tax return. Number one, get your information in early. If you're doing it yourself, make sure you start as early as possible, because I can just imagine the stress of trying to teach yourself how to self-assess and submit yourself online. And HMRC do not make things easy for you. Like, the government website, it's clunky as hell. I'm like, you know, it's so confusing. So I'm really glad that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pay someone to do that. But yeah, so if you're gonna submit yourself, or even if you've got an accountant, make sure you get the information to them as early as possible. Number two, make sure you keep receipts of everything. And when you're keeping your spreadsheet or your, you know, whatever, if you're using an app, make sure you note everything down. Like, I was noting the petrol that I filled my car up with when I was driving up to Nottingham, you know, coach tickets, train tickets, any, you know, food that I bought while on the road going to Nottingham. So anything related to your property business, as it were, like, make sure you note all of that down, because honestly, like, I mean, if I think it was my diligence in doing all of that probably paid off and ended up getting me back some money. One thing I will say, and what I learned, which was new to me, is that any money that you spend on refurbishing the property prior to it being let out, so while the property's still empty and you're doing work to it, all of that is not tax deductible. None of it is tax deductible. So I spent almost, I think, how much? About $3,000 in total prior to, you know, to get the property up to lettable condition. And, you know, in my spreadsheet, I'd taken that as expenditure, thinking, you know, oh yeah, no, wasn't tax deductible. But any money that I spent then afterwards, when there were tenants living in the property, to refurbish or to, you know, do the necessary checks that are required by landlords, that was tax deductible. So I was like, okay, cool. So I learned a little bit sort of going through the process. And that's pretty much it. I mean, in all, it was a much simpler process than I imagined it would be. I really worked myself up about it when I had no need to. Like, I'm just glad that it's done, hence why I'm doing this video, in the hope that it can help some of you guys out there. So you know that, you know, I think sometimes people are deterred from either starting their own business or buying a property because they think, oh my God, all these other things that I'm gonna have to think about, business related things, tax return, HMRC, blah, blah, blah. It isn't that difficult. You just kind of have to muddle your way through it. And once you've done it once, you can keep doing it again. Unfortunately, that is it for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for new content every Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.